tech services. The
Yeah.
gamut the possibilities are infinite.
Yeah.
One of the things which I noticed in my very, very short stay here in Australia is that there is a huge opportunity in terms of healthcare services. We can be not just a service provider, but we can also be an enabler. Do you recognize that here operating in Australia?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Healthcare is one of the biggest sectors where there is transformation happening, and I must say that over the last 5 to 10 years, what has happened in India is basically outpacing what is happening in Australia and many other developed countries, right? So healthcare is certainly one of those sectors. And if you look at just beyond healthcare, travel, hospitality, those sectors are also opening up. If you look at companies like Ola, who are now operating here in India, if you look at companies like Zomato, you go and find the restaurants and which is best for you. So I think the trend is changing. So obviously all these sectors are booming right now. So I think this is the right
Does that
time.
also provide an opportunity for tech-based entrepreneurs or techpreneurs to come in here, not just as service providers, but also enabling Australia as a nation to get more tech-friendly?
It's a huge opportunity. I mean, when you actually look at just the startup economy, Australia have probably 10 unicorns.
Okay.
I think India produced 48 unicorns in the first quarter.
Yes.
So, just the size is big. I think what has given confidence to the world, especially also in tech sector in Australia, is that if you look at the top 10 tech companies, a good 60-70% of them have Indian heritage CEOs. So then also what has happened in the recent past over the last 7-8 years under Prime Minister Modi's government is brand India has become extremely strong. So I think there's a lot that India can actually offer Australia in terms of services, in terms of thought leadership on some of these technologies. But I think there's a lot to also learn and take up from Australia. I mean, again, space is one, which is a very, very mature one here. Australia is doing extremely well around blockchain and provenance and things like that. So there's a learning for that. So I think, I think as the ministers pointed out, it is very complementary. I think, there are very few places where I think the two countries will actually compete.
Yeah, because now Australia, I just got to know they're getting into hypersonic missiles. Now we are already there into that tech.
Right.
As a country, we are already ahead of them. Space tech, we are ahead of them. You guys between Infosys and Tech Mahindra are handling almost everything. So you see that as also a possibility where India can actually come as an equal and not just look at Australia as a source of business, but tell Australia, listen, these are the things which we can tell you. We can teach you.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, we were talking about healthcare and many other industries. If you look at, say, Tech Mahindra as a company, we have given, I would say, new life or the wings that a lot of Australian startups and companies which are in their midlife crisis, a new life to sort of do business here in Australia and globally. So there is no question about it that, right now, defense as well as many other industry verticals, there is awful lot that both the countries can do together.
True. Today, we're looking at SIM cards, to operate in Melbourne and in Australia. And I was wondering, why can't there be a QR code which can directly link to my bank account and I can make the payment straight? Why do I have to tap a credit card or pay in Australian currency? So that's a possibility which we can look. And when I said, do you have a QR code? They looked at PayPal, and beyond that, they did not have any other option. They did not have a multi-platform single code which will enable, which is an enabler. So something which we are far ahead there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, if you just take micropayments and if you take the entire payment economy, India basically is the largest.
Yeah.
By far in the world. And when I want to actually buy something from a hawker on the roadside, I don't need. I mean, it's a cashless society.
Correct. In terms of the leather industry, are we looking at finished goods? Are we looking at half finished goods? Are there other categories where we can actually benefit?
We are absolutely looking at the value-added finished goods. We are not talking of exporting leather. We want to get out of the colonial mindset of exporting a raw material.
Yeah.
India has got tremendous capability in manufacturing, exporting finished goods. And you mentioned quality. Would quality be a concern? Quality is definitely a concern in the international market. It's a concern when you don't match it.
Correct.
In India, we are working with some of the best international brands in the world. Manufacturers are completely in sync on quality. We don't expect quality to be an issue at all. On delivery, you mentioned China and Bangladesh, for example. India is like China, but not like unlike Bangladesh. It's a completely vertical country.
Correct.
When it comes to, as our Prime Minister says, from fiber to fashion, we actually do everything in house. So, from a delivery point of view, we don't expect any issues either. Two, two caveats. One, we still have a somewhat narrow product mix.
Yeah.
And while the government is pushing the MMF, that is the man-made fiber sector, it's just started now. It's going to take some time to mature, etc. So that's the area we have to work on. And the second is, with CB also talking about logistics. If you can get your goods onto a ship, but if instead of reaching in 25 days, if it's going to take 60 days to reach, then you're losing that much marketing advantage, which China is a little ahead of the curve on that.
What do you see is the biggest challenge? Somewhere it goes back to, are we as a nation ready to deliver what is expected of us? One. Two, one aspect with the Chinese is not just the state also backed investment via the soft power, that is the corporate and the industry. Are we going to get a little more aggressive on that front? Do you have many people who are willing to invest in Australia to ensure that we get a more deeply embedded?
So it's just, I mean, I'm sure there are more people who would be interested in investing in Australia. But the way I see this operate is, we talked about tech. So there are huge advantages that we have seen in one of our reports that was referred to in the meeting just concluded. We talked about sectors like gaming, animation, and of that kind. And I see that's an area where we can have a lot of collaboration between our companies. There's a huge opportunity. India is a big market. So I think that's one area. Those are second. When you talk about the challenges, I see the challenge of huge information and knowledge deficit of our mid-sized companies and small companies, both in Australia and in India, about each other's companies. And I think that's the job that we have at hand now. That we have inked this, and that we are going towards a free trade agreement. I think there needs to be much more meetings of this kind, bringing them together, making them understand the market. And I think that's going to, we'll have to overcome that, and we'll have to get going on that.
What's in it for India in this agreement, from your perspective?
From our industry's point of view, we are looking at tremendous growth for both the apparel and the leather sector for India. And these are really labor-intensive sectors. So when we're looking at growth, we're not just talking of growth per se, which adds to the country's GDP or adds to foreign exchange. We're talking of creating jobs in India, and we're talking of creating jobs for the most vulnerable and most vulnerable of India's population, women, for example. This is a big. We 70% of the workers we employ are women, perhaps the only industry which does that. So all in all, great deal for India.
Great.
So I think there are raw materials which we are going to import. In most of the times in our previous FTAs, we've seen our FTAs not getting successful because we were exporting our raw materials. Here we are going to source raw materials to a great extent at competitive prices, and therefore which will help us become competitive. For question that you asked me. And second, the sectors that we are talking about, besides the tech sectors, the sectors like leather, footwear, food processing, these are all labor-intensive sectors. So if we are able to really expand and take advantage, we have a huge scope of increasing employment in our country.
So opening up all these visas for the students and then having a longer term visa to work over here and sort of contribute to the local economy ultimately helps in turn to Indian companies basically take these skills and do all the digital and the newer stuff that we do for our clients in making them successful. Skills is a big one.
Skills is a big one.
Talent is required, and I think the world is looking for it. India's economy is around services, and from a tech sector perspective, I see education as a big thing in India for us.
Well, yeah, it's a huge door of opportunity. Yeah. Now the challenge is for us as a nation, as Indians, to be able to stand up and deliver. And if we can make that count, then perhaps not just sky, but beyond that is the limit. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Cheers.